You look in the water and all you see is black. And, after you see that, you just look at everything else that's going wrong with the tower.
From the heartland of America, the gateway to the West, this is Engineering Tomorrow, the podcast, keeping you entertained and in the know on the latest commercial and industrial heating, cooling, and water treatment technologies.
Welcome to another episode of Engineering Tomorrow. I'm your host today, Brian Gomsky with Midwest Machinery. We have the pleasure of speaking again with Stephen Higgins, who is on episode 1. And Stephen is also a member of Midwest Machinery, a sales engineer, one of the best sales engineers we have. He pretty much knows everything about anything. If it has to do with the industrial or commercial HVAC, he's the de facto source.
And I know a few other things too, so feel free to try me.
Yes, he does. And folks, today, this is our third episode. We have some new audio equipment we are using today. We actually we sprung for 2 microphones, so it doesn't sound like we're speaking out of a tin can in an echoed room. All right, so today we are going to be talking about cooling towers and cooling tower maintenance. You guys may have seen in the news over the last several years, there's been some concerns with Legionella and cooling towers, and we'll definitely address that today. But Stephen, let's go ahead and open it up with the most basic question. What is a cooling tower?
Wow, we're already starting off with a pretty tricky question here. So, in the simplest terms, a cooling tower takes water and lowers the temperature of the water by running it over a fill material, and it'll have a fan pushing air through it as the water trickles down. It's really just to lower the water temperature. Ideally, you'll get 10-degree delta T.
Okay, so it's a big box, lowers the temperature of the water. But when you look at an actual HVAC system, it's just one piece of the system. What is the cooling tower attached to in most scenarios?
It will attach to your loop. This can be a variety of different things. Essentially, it's used in the HVAC process. It's used to chill water. That will then go to some sort of device to distribute air across a coil or some other way to introduce cooler air into your building.
So, from what I know, I think it's chillers in a heat pump system or VRF. Are there any other systems I'm missing? Or are those the primary ones?
It can be delivered to a air handling unit.
Okay, directly to an air handler.
But those are all very similar, with air passing over it, passing the chilled water, delivering cooler air to your room.
And I guess, is it still accurate to say using a cooling tower is the most efficient, kind of be one of the most efficient methods of assisting in keeping your building cold? Or
Yes. Well, working with water, too, is definitely one of the more efficient ways to go. A lot of people like the air handling units or the rooftop units, and that would just be a single unit ducting air into a room. But using water, incorporating a cooling tower, definitely more efficient. Lasts a lot longer, less maintenance than you would with any other sort of air device.
I'm a new building, just went up. I was hired and staffed with maintaining this building. And I go on the roof, or I know sometimes cooling towers are even on the ground floor, or even encased at one of the top floors. I've got this big metal box sitting there, and what do I do with it? How do I make sure that it keeps running day in, day out with the least amount of maintenance possible? Where do we start?
So we got to start from the beginning, setting up your cooling tower for maximum performance and lifetime. You're going to want to look at your gearbox oil. You're going to also look at your...
hold on, what is a gearbox? What is that for?
That will power your fan. It will move a drive shaft, in this case, and the motor connected to that will power your fan.
Okay, so the fan's on the top of the tower.
Correct.
And it's sucking air in through the fill, through the drift eliminators, and air is running over that water, cooling the water, and then the air is going, basically the fan's pushing it out the top?
Yes, expelling it out of the top.
Okay, so maintaining that gearbox, what's involved in maintaining the gearbox?
Really just checking your oil. There's going to be multiple places where you can check the oil depending upon your cooling tower and how it's configured. But just like any other piece of machinery, you have to make sure that oil looks good. Marley would recommend that you change the oil every 5 years.
Okay, and Marley, Midwest Machinery, we rep Marley Cooling Towers here. They recommend checking the oil every 5 years.
And that's just for a Marley-specific gearbox. You need to consult if you're using a different type of gearbox.
Different manufacturer, yep, okay.
Yes. Then you will need to look at the drive shaft. Now, the drive shaft is going to be in between the motor and the gearbox. There are going to be inserts that need changing. This is going to be also every 5 to 7 years, according to Marley's recommendations.
Those inserts are those essentially like rubber gaskets? Or, yeah, okay. Even on residential stuff, gaskets, they don't last forever. They get brittle, they break, and then that's when you start to get leaks and wear and tear. So nothing's going to last forever. You definitely want to check those for sure.
Right, especially the environment that they're in. They're going to see all the seasons of the year. Whether or not the cooling tower is being used during all the seasons might become a factor as well. That really just, you need to be checking it, and you would be able to tell if it needed to be replaced or not.
Yeah, that extreme weather really takes a toll on rubber for sure.
All equipment, really.
Yeah.
Another thing that you're going to want to maintain or check initially is your fan pitch. You're going to want to make sure that each blade is at the same angle. This is important to keep it working or operating correctly and smoothly.
To me, that sounds like a tough one. Is that something that the guy who's maintaining the building can do easily? It seems like you need some sort of device or measuring system for that.
It can be done easily with just a level.
Really? Okay.
Yep. There's going to be specific instructions for your fan pitch, what it needs to be. Now, depending upon which fan comes with your tower, it will already be set to that pitch. You might just need to double check it, make sure that it traveled down the road, nothing moved, nothing changed. So it's always a good idea to check it, and it can be easily adjusted.
Is that something would you notice if the fan was off pitch? Is it going to cause all sorts of vibration, or is it something you may not even know is happening?
Dependent upon how severe the difference is, you would notice. Obviously, the more severe it is, you'd be able to hear a difference, feel a difference, see it. But if it's just slight, you might not notice it for a while. But getting that fan pitch adjusted correctly will improve your tower performance.
With a fan being off pitch, is that what I've heard stories of a fan blade flying off of the mount and piercing through the cooling tower? Would that have to do with the fan pitch, or is that the motor, or what would cause that?
Wow. I've heard of that just kind of through the grapevine there. Never really looked into it that much. I think there's got to be several things that go wrong. Like in any catastrophe, it's not just one thing that happened that was the cause of the problem. There are multiple things compounded that actually equaled that fan blade being thrown through a cooling tower.
Okay. All right, so check the fan pitch. What's next?
You're going to want to look at the mechanical connection, the alignment between the motor and the gearbox. Now, this is important. So Marley would specify that it needs to be within 5/1000ths of an inch. Now, it is very tight. There's not a lot of room there. But if you can get in there, make sure that that is precise alignment, it will definitely save your tower in the long run.
Is that something the end user can do to check that? You see, to get to 5/1000th of an inch?
You're going to need some pretty specific equipment. You can use a laser, try and help that alignment. We definitely do it here at Midwest Machinery, and that is something that we've done quite often. So we are very good at that.
Now, I will say that most rep firms will come out and do an inspection for you. I know at Midwest Machinery, anytime someone wants us to come out and do a cooling tower inspection, we do that at no charge as of now. So it's just something to think about. But yeah, if you do get in over your head or want someone to check on it, give us a call or your local rep firm.
Yeah, absolutely. I've gone on quite a few of those. I actually have one scheduled for tomorrow. So.
Nice.
So moving on, though, that will get you up and moving as far as your equipment. Now comes the water treatment and getting your tower suitable to run water through it. All of your mechanics should be fine. So starting out your tower, you're going to need to contact a water treatment company. They're going to need to add chemicals or use some sort of treatment to passivate your tower. And basically,
what does that mean?
So with a galvanized tower, it's just to make sure that the water going through all the galvanization, it maintains that integrity of that hot dipped galvanization. There's not going to be something that eats away at that galvanization, and that will help maintain the longevity of your tower.
So is galvanizing, they're throwing some sort of chemical in the water when they first fill it, or how does that work?
Yes, you're going to use chemicals, biocides, and that's going to run through the tower for, you need to consult with your manufacturer on what length of time it needs to passivate, but every tower is probably going to be different depending on its size, but it's just running water with chemicals in it through the tower until that passivation period is over.
I would assume if you don't do that, you're going to have significantly less life on that tower, and I guess it's going to rust.
Yeah, it will basically wipe off your galvanization coating, and then there's going to be nothing there to protect the tower, and the water will eat away really quickly. You're going to start to notice leaks very, very soon. It's definitely not something that you want to do.
Okay, so we've galvanized the tower, now what?
So now you really need to look at a chemical treatment company. They're going to need to come up with a water treatment program. Now, as Brian mentioned earlier, you've seen in the news about Legionella coming and going into your towers. Well, that's going to be in the water. And what happens with towers is it's an open source, so a lot of dirt and debris can get in those towers, and that will provide a food source for this bacteria that will grow. The bacteria will then start in your cooling tower, and it might make its way down into your HVAC system. But by eliminating your bacteria in the tower, you would, hopefully rid your system of that Legionella bacteria.
There's a common misconception that cooling towers cause Legionella. A lot of people don't know this, is that water that comes from your municipalities is not 100% sterile. There are actually small trace amounts of bacteria that come from the municipality. By the time it gets there, through miles of pipes into your building, you get a couple strands of bacteria. They latch onto a wall in the pipes, and then they multiply. And once they get to a certain size, some of that bacteria breaks off and it moves farther down your system. It gets to your tower, and then it multiplies even more. But the tower itself is not the cause of Legionella. It's just someplace that Legionella can live.
Right. And that's because you're going to have that open source, a great area for dirt and debris to come in where bacteria would love to grow. Now, another thing that you can do is make sure you maintain your water level. There's going to be a recommended water level line on every tower. And by maintaining that, you're going to have a surface velocity that will help sweep basically all of your dirt and debris in your basin down into your drain. So you won't have that buildup if you're able to maintain that water level where it's recommended. Now, you don't want to get it too low because that's going to cause problems on your pump, and you don't want to have it too high because then you won't have that surface velocity that you're needing. So that's something that you really need to look out for is maintaining that, whether that be adjusting a float valve or any other sort of water level control that you have. Definitely something that you need to be monitoring closely. So another thing that you're going to want to look at is just regular cooling tower cleaning. Just like every other piece of equipment that you have, it's going to need some cleaning. It's going to be an open spot for things to enter, and it's obviously hard to keep a cooling tower clean year-round. So this is going to be getting in there and actually cleaning it or looking at it. Or, for instance, you're going to need to do blowdown. So blowdown is to get rid of that built-up concentration of dissolved solids in your cooling tower water. So with the cooling tower, you're dissolving water, like Brian was mentioning earlier. And that water is going to evaporate, but what evaporates is pure water. And that leaves behind dissolved solids. And that brings up the cycles of concentration. So in order to maintain a certain level of concentration, you need to have blowdown on your tower. So you're going to expel some of your highly concentrated tower water and make that up with your just regular makeup water. And the cycle of concentration is the difference between your makeup water and a concentrated cooling tower water.
Who gives the end user that information? Is that given to them by the engineer? Is that controlled?
How often they need to blow down?
Yeah, is there computer control that handles all this?
No, that's it's going to be case by case. It's something that you're going to need to consult with a chemical treatment company on and what you need to do. They will measure your water after it's gone through so many cycles to determine exactly how much water you need to blow down and how often you need to do it.
Okay.
So there are a couple other things that you need to do to maintain your tower. Now, a lot of people don't have a need for their cooling tower in the winter. This is typical in HVAC operation. You're not needing cooling, so you can shut off your cooling tower. And when you do this, you need to make sure that you drain your cooling tower, that you don't have that water in there so it would freeze and cause any damage. And there's a couple things that you also need to do if it were to have water in the tower during the winter. You can install a basin heater system. Now this is for any manufacturer. They would have a basin heater. It's a probe that will go in there and maintain your water temperature at a certain level. Another one would be field installation of heat tracing of piping, both internally and externally, making sure that your piping to the tower and in the tower is heat traced, that you wouldn't have any freeze damage. Another one would be that you need to provide a weep hole. So there's going to be large pipe in your tower that's carrying water to the top, so it's distributed over the fill material. Well, that's going to be full of water, so you need to get in there and drill a small hole so that during the winter operations, when you shut it down, all of that water that's in that pipe can trickle down and out and into your basin. And that can either be removed or sat or it can sit in there with a basin heater.
One thing I've noticed over the years with basin heaters is that, or at least one thing that I want to stress is to check the operation of your basin heater before it gets cold outside. Every year we get a lot of calls after the first big freeze of either the heater element not working or some part of it may malfunction on the older units. And what happens is all these basin heater parts get back ordered, and then you're weeks without the basin heater. So one thing I would recommend is that you check the functionality of your basin heater months before you hit that first freeze. When you do that, we can get you parts quickly. You can be in operation and you'll never have any downtime. The other thing I wanted to mention is, you talked about basins and how Legionella can thrive with some of the food that gets in the basin because of dirt and debris, is adding cottonwood screens to the outside of the cooling tower. Cottonwood screen is essentially a plastic mesh material that you wrap the outside of the tower with, and it doesn't 100% prevent, but it gets rid of a large percentage of dirt and debris that could possibly get in the tower, keeping it cleaner. Also in areas like Missouri, Colorado that have heavy cottonwood in the spring, if you maintain a tower, you know that you're constantly in the tower sludging out that cottonwood. Well, this traps it all before it gets in the tower, and we provide a broom that allows you to easily scrape all that dirt and debris off and throw it in the garbage.
And dirt and debris is usually a lot heavier than cottonwood as well. And if you have some sort of filtration system, it will take care of your dirt and debris. But sometimes the cottonwood, being so light, can get in past the filtration if you're using a centrifugal separator or something, and cause damage onto all of your other pieces of equipment. So this little add can have a whole lot of cost savings.
The other thing we didn't talk about, and you just mentioned, is the importance of a centrifugal separator in your system. Do you want to kind of explain what that is for anyone who might not know?
Yeah. Well, any sort of separator is definitely recommended with the cooling tower. You are going to get stuff in your tower. Even with the cottonwood screen, you're only going to be able to keep out so much. So some of that stuff you're going to need to expel before it gets to all of your other pieces of equipment that could damage it. So by paying a little bit up front, you can protect all of your equipment, especially chillers that are wildly expensive. Putting in a separator to get rid of some of that dirt and debris before it gets there can really save your life of your chiller.
I've heard a 32nd of an inch of dirt or scale on the inside of your chiller tubes can dramatically reduce efficiency. So keeping all that out on the front end is going to keep your system up running and maximum efficiency, keeping your electrical bills where they were when you first started up the system. The other thing I wanted to quickly touch on is water treatment and a couple of different options. I know you mentioned chemical treatment. I have heard some stories of some of the big chemical treatment companies, when they come to check your system, they don't even look at the tower. What they're doing is they're checking the most convenient spot for residual biocides. So your tower could be filled with gunk. It could be scaled up, but it's a 100-degree day. They're not going to go out on the roof and do a thorough inspection of your cooling tower. And I think there are some solutions such as Flowtech HVAC.
So yeah, there are definitely some chemical-free options out there. For instance, Flowtech, what it does is it produces a signal, electronic pulse, in your water, and that is actually through your water, not your piping, that will tackle your biofilm, bacteria buildup, scale. It's a very involved product, and it's ultimately going to be a discussion for another podcast. But yeah, there are definitely some great options out there, like Flowtech, that will treat your water chemical-free.
All right, so to summarize, there's not a ton of work with the tower. I don't want anyone to think that you get a cooling tower and you're constantly having to be involved with it. It's pretty maintenance free, other than occasionally checking the things we mentioned from the hardware perspective. You get a good water program set up, and that can run on autopilot, and that's really it. There's not really much more to it. And like I said previously, you add those cottonwood screens, some sort of filter system, and good water treatment, and you're good to go. And those stainless steel towers, they last a long time.
Yeah, and with good water treatment, you can extend your tower's life by 5 to 10 years. It's seen a lot of it. That really starts with that.
So with that said, my favorite part of the show, what is the craziest thing you've seen happen or witnessed at a cooling tower?
You know, there's been quite a few cooling towers where you look in the water and all you see is black. And, after you see that, you just look at everything else that's going wrong with the tower. The fill has completely collapsed. The motor isn't working correctly. The fan is shaking, so the whole tower looks like it's about to fall over. It's just amazing what poor water treatment can do to your tower.
All right, Stephen Higgins, I want to thank you again for being a guest host on the show. That was another episode of Engineering Tomorrow. Please visit our website at engineeringtomorrow.blog for more detailed articles and information on commercial and industrial HVAC systems. Until next time, have a good one and keep engineering for tomorrow today.
You've been listening to Engineering Tomorrow, the podcast. For more insights and downloadable content, please visit our website at www.engineeringtomorrow.blog. Until next time, engineer for tomorrow, today.